Welcome everyone to our channel, Egypt Travel Expert, a travel channel for elite travelers looking for a unique travel experience in Egypt. If you are lucky, come on board and join us for the trip of your dreams. Our visit today will be to the temple of Kom Ombo, only a few miles south of Aswan, located near the banks of the river Nile. And the temple have lost many of its stones, especially in the rear section. Therefore, very little remained out of this magnificent monument. The missing stones have been recycled and used for the construction of a sugar mill during the mid-19th century. But what is left out of this beautiful temple makes it one of the most interesting temples in Egypt. It is dedicated to god Horus and the crocodile god Sobek. The city of Kom Ombo, or the city of Embo, was a big trade center for the gold trade in the south of Egypt. Also, the Greek army used the city as a training center for African elephants, which were used during warfares, as African elephants were considered to be the tanks of the ancient armies. Also, the city nowadays contains a big sugar mill and an iron factory. The temple was constructed during the 2nd century before Christ, during the time of King Ptolemy IV, built on the ruins of an earlier pharaonic temple, much older, and it had been demolished and replaced with the building that we are visiting now. Unfortunately, the temple of Kom Ombo is located quite near to the river Nile, and this meant that the temple was often attacked by high flooding of the river Nile, causing the collapse of its walls, and also the pylon of the temple collapsed because of the continuous flooding of the river Nile, destroying the outside walls of the temple. This is a quite unique design temple, as Kom Ombo Temple was designed to serve two gods, two equal gods, god Horus and god Sobek. And the legend says that god Horus and god Sobek disagreed one day, and they decided to split the city between each other, and therefore they resorted to god Ra, who gave his judgment. He split the temple into two sections, and that's why this temple contains two entrances, two aisles, and two equal size Holy of Holies. Each of these Holy of Holies contained the sacred boat, which holds the shrine of the solid gold statue of the god Horus, the god of the eagle god, and god Sobek, the crocodile god. In ancient Egypt, the pharaonic religion of ancient Egypt often worshipped gods with animal image, and the Egyptian worshipped gods with animal image because they loved these gods or admired these gods, like god Horus, who was often admired because of the eagle flying in heaven, and gods' animal images of the Egyptian fear, such as the lion or the cobra or the crocodile. All these predator animals were feared in ancient Egypt, and therefore the Egyptian worship, or beneficent animals such as the cow representing goddess Hathor. The temple is located on high grounds on the east side of the river Nile, where passengers sailing alongside the river Nile could see the temple from a distance. But this did not save the temple from the flooding of the river Nile, which caused the outside wall of the temple to collapse. At the gateway of the temple, we see decoration showing a poem that the priest often chant to praise the gods of the temple. The temple consists of an open court surrounded with one row of columns with a total number of 16. And these columns, which is half broken, still maintain some of its beautiful decorations and colors, representing the king of Egypt giving offering to god Horus and god Sobek. In the middle of the open court, we can see a stone platform on which the sacred boat is placed during the celebration. The front wall of the temple was decorated with a traditional scene showing rituals that preceded the coronation of the king, the baptism of the king, as we see the king standing between two gods who are pouring holy water on his head in front of god Sobek to baptize the king before he is crowned with the crown of Egypt. And this scene is repeated once more on the other side of the doorway. We go through the dual entrance of the temple to the first colonnade, which contains 10 pillars with floral capitals high with 30 feet high, and it contains fantastic coronation scenes for King Ptolemy. And we can see here the king, after he was baptized, receiving the crown of Egypt on his head, the double crown. And during these rituals, the goddess would place the crown of the South of Egypt, the white crown, first on his head, and then they would install the red crown on the second stage, and then the two crowns are fastened together with a gold wire. We notice that the artistic style of this decoration is highly influenced with the Greek taste in art, as the images representing the goddesses have been sexualized, and the goddesses' breasts and hips were inflated in a very exaggerated way, while the muscles of the gods and the king was represented quite big, as if they are wrestlers. And this shows the obsession of the Greek art with the physical beauty, comparing to the Egyptian art, which focused on elegancy rather than beauty. Then we proceed to the second colonnade that contains a similar number of pillars. However, it is much smaller in size with floral capital, and it is decorated with traditional offering scenes for the Greek king giving offerings to the different gods and goddesses of the temple. Then we can see a scene representing a crocodile standing on a platform. It shows that this temple contained a living crocodile, which was kept inside the temple, and it had been pampered, and it was offered pancakes covered with honey, and goose and ducks, and the animals was treated honorably even after it dies. and it had been mummified and then buried outside the temple in a big, majestic funeral and a big celebration, which is attended by the high figure of the city of Kom Ombo. And then another crocodile is chosen to be kept inside the temple as a mascot or a living image for the god, crocodile god Sobek. And it seemed that this tradition continued for many generations, as hundreds of burials were found behind the temple in a large cemetery that extended for 2 miles. And it contained hundreds of mummies of crocodiles. Some of them can be seen in the small museum outside the temple on your way out on the right-hand side. Then we proceed to the offering hall, and it contains offering celebrational list, and it contains what looks like a calendar that mentions the different days of celebration that the temple was celebrating the festival of God Horus and God Sobek. And from this point we proceed to another hall called the Hall of Gods. And this is the area where the gods and the goddesses of the temple are assembled to celebrate the New Year celebration every year. And this brings us to a very important subject, the Egyptian calendar, and its relationship with the modern time calendar that we use today, which is known as the Gregorian calendar. The Egyptian calendar was introduced in the year 2800 BC, and the Egyptian divided the year into 360 days plus 5-day celebration, and the year was divided into 12 months, each month 30 days, and each week was 10 days. The day was divided into 12 hours for the day and 12 hours for the night. And the year had been divided into 3 seasons: the season of flooding, Shimu, and the season of harvest, Peret, and the season of winter, Achid. When the Romans came to Egypt, they made some adjustment to their calendar in order to make it synchronized with the Egyptian calendar, which meant that the Roman needs to add 2 months to their calendar: the month of July to celebrate the memory of Julius Caesar, and the month of August to celebrate the memory of Emperor Octavius Augustus, the nephew of Julius Caesar, the emperor who invaded Egypt. And that's why adding these 2 months meant that both months of September and October are no longer in their proper position in the calendar. September means the 7th month, and October means Octa or 8. But of course, in the order of the year became month number 9 and month number 10. And this adjustment was made during the time of Emperor Octavius Augustus, who invaded Egypt in the year 30 BC and ended the Greek rule of Egypt after the last Greek ruler of Egypt, Queen Cleopatra VII, killed herself. During the time of Pope Gregorius, the Egyptian calendar was adjusted in order to make the calendar more accurate. And this is when the calendar was adjusted. They added 1 day to the month of February every 4 years. Now we proceed to the Holy of Holies of this temple. And as I told you, this temple is serving 2 equal gods, God Horus and God Sobek. And that's why we have got in this temple 2 equal Holy of Holies. Between the two buildings, there is a small corridor which would allow one of the priests to sneak in order to talk to the visitors of the temple, who had to pay lots of money in order to get premonitions and oracle opinions about their future. And the priest would often answer them with vague general answers that bears many meanings. In one of the scams that the priest of this temple used to practice in order to increase the income of this temple. In the middle of each of the Holy of Holies, there is a basalt platform on which the sacred boat of the god is placed, which contains a small shrine that houses the solid gold statue of god Horus, which takes the image of an eagle, and the solid gold statue of the crocodile god Sobek. The Holy of Holies of this temple is surrounded by 9 shrines, which is used as a storage and also as a guest rooms for visiting gods to the temple. And unfortunately, that section of the temple lost most of its stones because of the recycling that took place during the mid-19th century, when the Egyptian government decided to make a big sugar mill in the city of Kom Ombo. And they removed many stones from Kom Ombo Temple and recycled these stones in the construction of the factory, the sugar factory, which is still standing until now during the mid-19th century. We also notice after they removed the stones that the stones of the temple have been connected with what we know as the butterfly joinings or the dove tail joinings. And these holes in the stones were fitted with pieces of wood in order to connect the stones together and make them fit together. Behind the Holy of Holies, we see the dungeons, and there is many underground corridors and dungeons behind the Holy of Holies, where the priest kept all the valuables of the temple, jewelry and gold coins and wealth that the temple enjoyed. We proceed now to one of the most famous and unique scenes in the temple of Kom Ombo, which is the surgery tool scene. And these surgery tools were given by King Ptolemy to the priest of the temple to increase their ability to practice sophisticated surgeries and provide medical care for the people of Kom Ombo. And it is showing the king kneeling in front of god Horus and giving the surgery tools to god Horus. And often people make the mistake that the god represented receiving the surgery tools is god Imhotep, a famous architect, designed the first known pyramid in Egypt during the 3rd dynasty, the step pyramid of King Zoser in Saqqara. And he was worshipped during the Greek time as the god of medicine, or god Asclepius in the Greek mythology. However, the evidence shows that the god in the scene was wearing a wig, and we know clearly that Imhotep is usually represented without a wig. Therefore, he cannot be Imhotep or Asclepius. So this is a common mistake usually the tour guides mention when they explain this temple. We notice that the surgery tool is quite thorough, as it contains scissors, tweezers, cutters. It also contains a saw, which is used to cut bones in the amputation surgery, which were quite common at the time. Also, we find sponge used to wipe blood. Also, we see a scale which is used to measure the weight of the medicine portions which is offered to the sick. We also see the famous amulet of the Eye of Horus. And that amulet was often used to help sick people cured from the evil spirits and disease. We proceed outside the temple to see a small basin where the crocodile lived, and we can see also a water well from which the priest provided the drinking water to the temple. And then we see a magnificent Nilometer, which is 60 foot deep, and it is provided with stairway and tunnels which would allow the water of the river Nile to flow into the shaft. And there is actually on your way into the temple, if you look on your right hand side while climbing the stairway that leads to the temple, there is a tunnel, and that tunnel is the intake tunnel, which will allow the water to flow into the shaft, which is carefully measured when filled during the flooding of the river Nile in the summer, in order to estimate tax over the people who lives in the city. Every inch increases inside the Nilometer shaft meant there is more land on both sides of the river is receiving water, and therefore it is eligible for tax, as the Egyptian government did not charge tax for land that did not receive the water of the river Nile flooding. Don't forget to take a photo for the temple. From that point, it has a really nice panoramic view. And then on your way out to the exit door, you can see the small museum that contains a very interesting collection of mummies of crocodiles which were found buried behind the temple of Kom Ombo for the crocodiles which lived inside this temple for generations, and some of them 2,000 years old. Also, the museum contains statues and other artifacts which have been recently found in the late excavations which were made around the temple of Kom Ombo. The temple opens its doors till 8 o'clock in the night time. So visit the temple by sunset time so you can enjoy the changing lights on the walls of the temples and decoration between sunset into light. And the temple at night time is properly illuminated by electric lights, which would allow you to have exquisite, fantastic photos for the temple at night time. I hope you enjoyed your tour to Kom Ombo Temple this time. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment, as I would like to know your thoughts about these videos and your suggestions about other